like for the rest of you all, COVID-19 has impacted how we provide services. So let me move my presentation over. Can folks see that? I don't like looking away. Okay. So behavioral health services for folks experiencing homelessness that are available. So hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll have a better understanding of the services available for folks experiencing homelessness, at risk of homelessness, or recently homeless. Learn how to get to those services, learn about how we've been making an impact around homelessness and homelessness prevention, and then we'll have an opportunity to discuss anything you might have questions about. So this very pretty graphic kind of explains the intensity of our services. Just like in housing, there's permanent supportive housing, transitional housing, and rapid rehousing. Those services are targeted based on the person's need and challenges. We base our services on the level of impairments in the community and day-to-day living. So our lower intensity providers would be like Wellness and Recovery Center and Guest House. They're pretty low intensity. These folks aren't always super independent, but these are kind of the front doors they come in through because they can self-refer, and a lot of folks stay with them because they do have low intensity needs. Then you have your low to moderate. That's your regional support teams. There's 4 of those, and that also includes the Children's FIT, which is Flexible Integrated Treatment Services. So these are folks that are still semi-independent. We only have 1 moderate intensity provider, so that would be equivalent to transitional housing if you think about levels. And they're semi-supportive, which means they assist people out in the community or folks who have more intensive case management. And then we have our high intensity full service partnership providers who have access to funds, housing or housing funds. That's Telecare Soar, Telecare Rise, Turning Point has several of them, including Pathways and TLCS, and the equivalent in the children's world is the wraparound programs. So as you can see on the left-hand side, that column also kind of describes what housing resources are available at what levels. So permanent supportive housing is obviously available at our highest levels, where the rapid rehousing and prevention is utilized at our lower levels of care. So what can we provide for folks experiencing homelessness? We'll go more into the actual financial supports later on, but we provide individual therapy, medication support, entitlement support, so obviously linking to any kind of benefits they might qualify for. We do homelessness prevention, and that could be financial or that could be behavioral intervention. We also can produce referrals to other programs and resources, including alcohol and drug treatment, maybe support groups out in the community, etc. We do co-occurring disorder groups and support. A lot of our folks do have co-occurring substance use disorders. Case management, psychosocial rehabilitation, that's that one-on-one kind of behavioral intervention. Community integration, supportive housing, and we also try to remove housing barriers, and that might look like advocacy, that might look like helping people gather the necessary documents. It can take very, very many forms. And then, so where can folks experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness get access to our services? I've already provided some of the brochures. I'm sure she'll distribute to you all later. So the red ones are can be a bit more urgent. So we have the mental health access team. Those are folks that you can just call and self-refer, or you can call with the client and you can self-refer. Frequently, it's helpful if there's a support person present to help kind of explain some of the observations or concerns they have about them. The intake stabilization unit and intensive placement team, these are for folks experiencing hospitalizations. Usually it's the hospital that makes the referral. Guest house, wellness, and recovery both have walk-in access to our services. The mobile crisis support team, they are a ride-along with law enforcement. You can't necessarily dispatch them. I wish you could. I'm sure lots of situations we want to do that, but they are out there, and if they do a ride-along, they do what they can to follow-up resources. Community support team, people can self-refer, or you can refer people. We'll talk about that a little bit more. The mental health urgent care clinic is just what it sounds like. People are having a crisis, and as long as they are a resident of Sacramento, they will be served. And at least linked back, maybe they have Kaiser originally, or maybe they don't have any services at all. They will get that linkage there also. We've got our peer navigators, CPS. There's a lot of folks that refer to us, but we're going to go into the ones that are going to be most commonly used by folks. The access team. I will self-disclose, I worked for the access team and I really enjoyed it. They have 15 licensed clinicians. They get over 3,000 phone calls a month. So when you call up, the clinician on the other line does what we call a presumptive diagnosis. Obviously, you can't fully diagnose somebody without spending a certain period of time with them, but they do a short, brief assessment with folks to see if they meet certain eligibility requirements, and then we presume they meet the diagnosis, and we get them set up with a provider. For folks, usually it's been geographically assigned, and people experiencing homelessness were told to go to guest house, but not anymore. People experiencing homelessness can get linked through the access team, and people at risk of homelessness. I know you guys do housing for folks, but I also know that frequently these folks have a difficult transition from going to unhoused to housed. So these resources are still valuable for them so they can prevent any issues that might put their housing at risk. Another way we provide access to our services, this is super exciting, and we're actually going to get a second person, is we have a clinician who will actually go out to the shelters you see listed here, and he will meet with individuals, and he can provide case management. He can consult with the staff. He can provide those access assessments face-to-face with the folks in the shelters. He can also assess for higher levels of care, and he can also assess for alcohol and drug treatment services. So that's been very exciting, and we're looking to expand that. So it's pretty fluid. He has a good relationship with these different providers. So sometimes, you know, he might go a week where he doesn't really need to go, things are stable, but maybe they get a new resident in and he'll arrange to go and see them. He's also over at Wind Youth Services. So he supports 10 shelters. He's provided over 200 services, 36 intensive assessments, and he's also done linkages. He has also had encounters with children and TAY. He's actually built a really good relationship with the TAY providers. So what are some other front doors you all can access? Again, people can use the telephone and do the access team, but frequently people like to strike while the iron is hot. So the three best front doors for folks experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness is Guest House, the Wellness and Recovery Center North off of Marconi, and Wellness and Recovery South is off of Florin Road. Guest House, okay, I'll self-disclose, I monitored all these contracts. I really enjoyed working with them. So if you're Medi-Cal recipient or Medi-Cal eligible and 18 plus, experiencing homelessness or at risk of it, you can literally just walk in 3 times a week. There's Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 10 and Thursdays at 1. They do a great orientation where they kind of explain to people what their services are. And when the orientation is done, they kind of, and Cindy's on the line, so she could correct me if I'm incorrect about this. They kind of tell them, this is our program, and then they kind of tap each person individually after the orientation to see if they have that presumptive eligibility, and they will set up an intake appointment for them and get them enrolled in services. And they provide all the standard services that our outpatient providers do. But I think one special thing about them is they were our flagship provider in addressing folks experiencing homelessness. So their culture and their focus is really narrow in that sense, and they're pretty well known in the community. More recently, they've done something fabulous, and I love these pictures because it actually looks very similar if you were to go to the Connections Lounge. It's a drop-in center for anyone experiencing homelessness. They do not need a diagnosis. And so Monday through Friday, 9 to 3, there's laundry facilities available, light refreshments. There's like granola bars and coffee, and they have phone charging stations, super popular amenity. They do outreach. So folks are kind of like hanging out, they're drinking their cup of coffee, they're checking their email, and guess how staff goes out and engages them. And for folks who seem like they would be eligible for services, they try to kind of bring them in and build that relationship. People are frequently, reluctant, but once you've been hanging out, you've made some friends, you might be more open to actually getting an intake appointment. There is a sense of community. They have computers. They also have a little TV area and play movies. They have a library area. It's very well decorated. I know that sounds silly, but folks experiencing homelessness don't frequently get treated with the dignity they deserve. And to come into a drop-in lounge that's got nice floors, got nice couches, friendly staff, well lit, I have to imagine that makes for a more positive experience. They also have the SMART program. So for folks enrolled in one of our outpatient treatment programs, they will help the person get their Social Security. They will automatically reapply if somebody is declined. They've built relationships with folks at Disability Determination Services and SSI, and they will help the folks with the application hand over hand. It's quite amazing the work they do. They do the releases, they ask for the records, they help with the paperwork, they walk people through the entire process. Wellness and recovery centers over in the north and south, you don't have to be homeless. Their services, for example, they have peer services. So you don't even need a diagnosis. You can just kind of walk in and hang out in their drop-in center, meet people with lived experience, participate in groups. If you're interested in services and you're experiencing homelessness, you can go to the orientations at their sites. You would check the web page right now because COVID-19 has impacted scheduling, but they keep a very current monthly schedule on their website about what groups they're offering and when their orientations are. They also have showers and laundry for folks experiencing homelessness. So mind you, even though they have outpatient and they do have access to housing funds, the peer services do not have access to housing funds, but the person does not need a diagnosis. Peers can support in the sense they can help fill out paperwork, maybe go through Craigslist to look for an apartment. But I will be honest, if they're not participating in the outpatient, there isn't that funding to help with housing. They, again, do the case management, medication support, referrals, computer lab. The ping pong is on there because, seriously, ping pong is popular. Every time I've visited, somebody's playing it. But it's got a very friendly atmosphere. So when people walk in, it's not a stuffy clinic. There's generally peers, just regular folks from the community hanging out. They might be playing cards. They might just be chatting, having a cup of coffee. They do groups, everything from how to deal with, your symptoms of bipolar to crochet. So if your client's reluctant to link to services because they have a fear of stigma, the wellness and recovery centers are a great place to start, whether or not you're homeless. So no referral needed. That was the peer program I was telling you about. And the groups, you don't have to be part of the outpatient, do deal with all sorts of topics. Their art expression groups are pretty great. Everything in their offices is client and peer created. There's that ping pong table again. I tell you, it's very popular. Now we have the community support team. This is non-urgent support, so this is not the folks to call if somebody's actively in crisis. This is for that person who's kind of on the fence, and you might start to see signs of distress. So these folks help people navigate the system and access resources. Think about somebody, my favorite example of this was a gentleman who had agoraphobia so severely that he would not even come out of his room to participate in a phone interview for services, though he was interested. So his family made a referral to the community support team, and he was able to get assessed in his home. They talked to his family, what the services were, and they were able to link them. So think of them as kind of coaches on how to get through to the system. And I do believe I provided your team with the brochure for them. But again, not for urgent cases, but you can refer anybody. Those people who are on the fence, are overwhelmed by the idea of trying to access services, these are the folks to call. So it is urgent, and you need your client to get attended to sooner than not. Obviously, there's 911 and the mobile crisis support team I was telling you about, who does ride along with law enforcement. We have at least 5 teams, and they're looking to expand. It's been a very successful partnership, and law enforcement is actually very interested in expanding on it. However, if you do call 911, I would really focus on the distress or the behavioral things, because when calls get screened, if they get a sense it's a mental health related emergency, they're more likely to dispatch that team. So in an emergency situation, HIPAA does allow for you to share a little bit of that information in order to keep that person safe. So again, how you kind of describe the emergency to dispatch might have an impact on whether or not that team is utilized. Can't make any promises, but that's how the dispatch gets triggered. A mental health urgent care clinic. It is located on the same campus as the Sacramento County Mental Health Treatment Center. It has extended hours, but again, with COVID-19, you might want to double check their website. They serve all ages. Your client has kids and they need to be seen, they can bring their kids. There's a room for families to wait, and like toys and things to keep the kids occupied. You can bring your support person with you. And it's this alternative of going to the ER when somebody's distressed, because they can literally walk in and they'll immediately get attended to by peer staff, people to kind of engage them, make them feel welcome. They get a comprehensive assessment. They get figured out whether or not they have services. They get linked to services if they agree, or if they already have a linkage, but maybe are having a hard time figuring out what benefits they have or what treatment options they have, they can help them navigate all of that. And if for some unfortunate reason the person does need to be hospitalized, they can also assess for that. And because they're on the campus, it's a much smoother transition into the hospitalization. So if somebody's experiencing a mental health crisis that you would normally take them to the ER, you might want to consider the mental health care clinic. Obviously, if somebody is actively suicidal or homicidal, you would still want to do the ER route. Does mental health have housing? We do. We do. We do have access to 181 built units in 9 projects around our community. These are generally people who meet chronic homeless status, and we do have plans to obtain more built units. So coming soon, we're actively trying to get units at these properties, and generally, again, they tend to be for chronically homeless, but we're really trying for some that are just literally homeless, so we can have more opportunities for folks and prevent people from getting chronically homeless. So what other services do we have? So if you participate in one of our outpatient services, guest house, wellness and recovery centers, or any of our other outpatient providers we've alluded to earlier, we have voucher supplements. So I know a lot of folks struggle that they have a voucher but have a hard time finding a landlord to take that voucher. We can put some additional funding on top of that voucher. So like the voucher is $800, but the most reasonable rent we can find is $900. We would add $100 to give some incentive and hopefully convince the landlord to let them rent. Rent gaps, same thing, but if the client might not have enough income, some of our programs do master lease, room and boards, and kind of use them as a transitional housing to like get folks into something a bit more permanent. We can do short stays at hotels and motels. This happens more with families. The larger the family, the harder it is to place. I'm sure you all know that. We can help with utilities, security deposits, building maintenance and repair. So you've got a client who had an unfortunate behavioral episode and might have punched a wall in the a hole in the wall. You could have that fixed to prevent them from becoming homeless or getting in trouble with the landlord. We do credit repair fees, housing document readiness. You need a copy of a birth certificate. Your social security card will help with that. And we can help with some moving expenses, furniture, and other household goods. Recently, a young couple moved into an apartment. They didn't have a crib for the baby. I mean, a crib is just basic health and safety for a family. So we were able to purchase and support them with that. So we got the funds back in 2018, and so that did give us housing supports and subsidies for all our outpatient programs. We also expanded how many people we can serve. These providers that we alluded to earlier all got additional funding to help folks experiencing homelessness. So when we went live, Telecare Arise got 20 MHSA built units for literally homeless folks, and they're serving 200 clients at any time. And we've expanded this funding and supports into our children's providers also, because we recognize frequently, even though the child is the client, the family might be struggling, and we want to keep kids housed also. So the exciting news is since May 2018, we have housed 950 individuals and their households. And 849 of that was the last fiscal year, which is pretty exciting. So we have done over 1,400 rent gap services, nearly 500 subsidy services. We've done over 20 master leases, over 300 motel stays, and over 450 security deposits. And that's just on the adult side. And then as you can see, the children's side, and then the average number of services per client to give us kind of an idea. It does look like security deposits are pretty successful because people generally only need one of those. So over 2,000 unduplicated adult clients received some kind of housing related funding from us. And 177 unduplicated child clients and their families also got some kind of housing related flexible funding. How much do you all serve youth or get involved with youth, out of curiosity? Because we do have a focus on youth and making that impact, keeping kids from becoming homeless. And I'm not going to go too into those items if you all aren't really serving children. Questions?
Hey, Monica, this is Cindy.
Hey, Cindy.
I just wanted to update everyone. Due to COVID, currently our Connections Lounge, we are limiting how many people we have in our lounge area. We are actually rotating people out. So every hour we have about 10 people in the Connections Lounge, and that includes consumers and guests. That way everybody still kind of gets their needs met. So we just always ask for people when they come into the Connections Lounge for their hour time slot to really make sure they talk to staff to make sure their needs are addressed during that time. And then also on top of that, our computer lab's currently closed at this time, just for cleaning purposes and things like that. And then for our orientation services, we've been able to work with a few shelters on getting selected days out of the week to do phone orientations. So that way clients don't have to come into the clinic to do it. We've actually been able to work with also the crisis residential centers with Turning Point as well, because a lot of people are having to stay locked down at their site. So anything that other people are needing support with, just give us a call, email us. We're very flexible, and we'll definitely always try to help coordinate any type of care.
Thank you, Cindy. Those are some pretty creative solutions.
You're welcome.
Hi, Monica. I'm Kathy Sims. I am the Director of Case Management for the new Tay Shelter, EBH The Bridge, and also at the North A Street Shelter. And so let me preface this if I sound frustrated. Most of our clients somehow seem to fall through the cracks somewhere. And I guess my question is, how do we bridge the gap between like a serious mental health crisis that maybe they don't fit 5150 criteria per se, but then linking them to a higher level of care sometimes takes months. And so we're frequently having to exit people, especially the Tay, out of our shelters because they're so disruptive to the environment. And we've sent people to like mental health urgent care to be turned away, or the police pick them up and drop them off down at Loaves and Fishes. And we're just kind of frustrated. We don't know how to bridge the gap. Maybe we're doing something wrong.
Well, I'm kind of glad you brought that up. First, I would like for next time you have a particular problem with a particular client or provider, feel free to reach out to me. I can put you in touch with the monitor over that contract, or kind of provide at least some technical support around, problem solving that. It shouldn't take that long. There are a couple of more modern ways, because you know how youth is, they're all, tech savvy and such. But seriously, Kathy, get in touch with me so I can help you problem solve. There are some hotlines that youth can call when they're experiencing distress or crisis. And there's the Youth Help Network, and there's also the Source. Kids can call, chat, text. It's for youth up to the age of 26 and their caregivers 24/7. So they can help navigate. They might just do that little, pep talk. But they've been very well utilized. So the Source and or the Youth Help Network are good for in that moment, and they're tailored more towards youth and their use of social media. Otherwise, again, I invite you, if there's a particular client or issue, that I would be more than happy to case conference and kind of provide you that support.
Okay, yeah, we're using Youth Help Network, but we're finding that process is long. And these are clients that aren't even able to pick up a phone. They may be, running around in their underwear, spray painting the insides of their cabins, urinating cabins. I mean, that level of severity.
There's also the community support team, because they could actually go out. Again, you probably won't call them right when it's happening, but if somebody's already got a pattern or building up, I would call the community support team. That's another possible resource.
Okay.
And they usually,
Maybe I'll reach. Go ahead.
yeah, no, check them out. I'm pretty fond of them. They can go out to the location, and the beauty of it is the staff can make the referral. Anybody can refer. The kid doesn't need to self-refer. Sorry, I said kid. I'm old, and that's why I'm referring to Tay.
Okay. And maybe we can talk offline about a few things as well.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Hi, Monica. I'm Daniel. I'm a case manager at the Grove as well. And I had a question about the crisis support team, I think it was.
Mhm.
And how you mentioned that you connect with them through dispatch.
That's the mobile crisis support team.
Yeah, the mobile crisis one. How does that work? We've had a couple clients trying to get connected to services, even to the ER. But like, how does that mobile crisis team work?
The mobile crisis team works, I'll be honest, based on where they get dispatched to. Dispatch, it gets trained to kind of see some keywords, kind of be able to assess the situation. And if at that point they say, okay, this sounds like somebody's in crisis and not necessarily being criminal, they do the dispatching. So unfortunately, we don't have any control over where our clinicians get dispatched to. We don't have the ability to trigger it. It's really how the person reports the situation and the availability of the mobile crisis support team. They've become a very popular and very much in demand. The community support team is where you can like wait a couple of days, but maybe you have somebody who's reluctant. You have a situation where people are kind of amping up and they might get themselves in trouble and kicked out. They would be a good place to start.
Okay.
Do you all have any relationship with Wind Youth Center?
We do. Yeah, we work pretty closely with them.
Beautiful, beautiful. I believe our clinician still goes there, our access clinician. And from what I understand, he can assess people utilizing the drop-in center. So
you're referring to Michael Young?
Yes.
Yeah. We have a good relationship with Michael.
Yeah, Michael might be a good place to start too, because especially for a case conference, because he has access to electronic health record, so he can kind of maybe see the person's history, what's worked, what's not worked. Yeah, but myself and Michael are always happy to provide technical support.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. And yes, I will send a PDF copy of the slides when we're done with the presentation. So do most of you all work with Tay in your program? Tay is one of my favorite populations. I actually started in residential treatment for Tay.
Okay, so if anyone else has any questions, you're more than welcome to email Monica or myself and we can get those answered for you. I also have a lot of PDFs that Monica had sent me, so I will get that along with a recording of this video over to everyone as soon as we're done with this meeting.
Cool. There was a comment section by Michael. I don't know if that was already addressed.
Hi. I don't really remember when in the slide I asked that because it was kind of moving along. So it's okay. I don't really know which program that was specifically.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you all for attending this meeting. I will get the information over to you, and thank you, Monica, for your
No problem.
time
My
and for the
pleasure.
awesome presentation. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.